Welcome to Echoes of War. In this video, we'll be looking at the Battle of the Bulge.
By late 1944, the Allies thought the war in Europe was nearly over. German forces were retreating on multiple fronts, leading American commanders to station exhausted and inexperienced troops in the dense, freezing Ardennes Forest of Belgium and Luxembourg, a region considered completely quiet. But Adolf Hitler refused to accept defeat. He planned a massive, secret counteroffensive designed to punch through those very woods, split the British and American armies, and capture the vital port city of Antwerp. If he could force the Western Allies into a negotiated peace, he could turn Germany's remaining military might toward the advancing Soviet Union. On the freezing morning of December 16th, that quiet forest erupted. Germany unleashed a staggering force of over 250,000 soldiers and nearly 2,000 tanks and assault guns right into the unsuspecting American lines. This tactical map shows exactly how the geography shifted. Heavy winter clouds grounded Allied aircraft, stripping the Americans of their devastating air support. Without it, the front line quickly buckled inward, creating a massive, expanding bulge deep into Allied territory. The sheer physical force of the attack overran entire units within hours. Yet the artillery and armor were only the first phase. The true aim was to shatter the psychological will of the American troops so completely that they would abandon the fight. To sow immediate chaos, German commanders launched Operation Greif. English-speaking German commandos infiltrated the American lines, wearing captured U.S. uniforms and driving American jeeps. They severed communication wires, altered road signs to redirect traffic, and fed false information to military police. The resulting pairing ran whipped through the retreating units. No one knew who to trust. American soldiers resorted to interrogating one another at checkpoints, using baseball trivia and obscure pop culture questions to try and identify the German infiltrators hiding among them. The confusion quickly escalated into stark terror. The next day, an elite armored spearhead known as Kampfgruppe Piper captured dozens of Americans near the Belgian town of Malmedy. Instead of taking them prisoner, the German soldiers opened fire, murdering approximately 84 unarmed Americans. Word of the massacre spread rapidly across the frozen front. The reality of the bodies left in the deep snow made the stakes incredibly clear to the surviving troops. Surrender meant execution. The atrocity was meant to crush morale, but it had the exact opposite effect. Outraged by the slaughter, American units hardened their resolve. Across the Ardennes, isolated pockets of troops decided to dig into the snow and fight to the last man. Intimidation was supposed to clear the path for a lightning-fast German advance. Instead, the brutality forged an immovable wall of American resistance exactly when the German army desperately needed speed. To understand why the stalled, look at the geography. To reach Antwerp, Germany's heavy armor required paved roads. On this network map of the Ardennes, all local roads funneled directly through a single Belgian town, Bastogne. Holding that crucial crossroads fell to the U.S. 101st Airborne Division, along with elements of a few other American units. As the German advance pushed westward, it completely swallowed the town, surrounding the American defenders on all sides, right past the Bastogne town sign. Inside the pocket, the conditions were incredibly brutal. The trapped Americans endured sub-zero temperatures without proper winter clothing. They were critically short on ammunition, food, and basic medical supplies, leaving the wounded to suffer in the freezing cold. Knowing the Americans were isolated and freezing, the German commanders sent a formal written ultimatum. They demanded the immediate surrender of the town, threatening total annihilation by artillery fire if the Americans refused. Bastogne became the focal point of the entire campaign. Germany had applied maximum physical deprivation and overwhelming military force. The question was whether the American mind would finally snap under the pressure. The message was delivered to the acting commander of the 101st Airborne, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, inside the freezing American command post. After reading the demand to surrender, McAuliffe issued a typed one-word reply to the German commander. It simply read, "Nuts." The response was so confusing to the German officers that an American colonel had to explicitly translate it for them. He told them it meant, "Go to hell." That brief, defiant message ripped through the American lines. It galvanized the exhausted defenders. Rather than folding, they dug deeper into the frozen earth, forcing the fast-moving German blitzkrieg to grind into a stubborn, static siege. That single word was the psychological anchor the Allies needed. It proved that the American lines would hold, physically stripping the German war machine of the momentum it required to succeed. By refusing to yield Bastogne, the 101st Airborne bled the German offensive of its most precious resource, time. Every day the Germans spent trying to break the town was a day the Allies used to mobilize. General George S. Patton executed a massive logistical maneuver, turning his Third Army 90 degrees and marching his men relentlessly through the winter storms to finally break the siege of Bastogne on December 26th. The delay brought a second fatal consequence for Germany. Right after Christmas, the heavy winter clouds finally parted. Allied fighter planes and bombers flooded the skies, immediately attacking German columns, bridges, and the supply routes holding the offensive together. The German supply chain completely collapsed. Deprived of fuel shipments by the constant air raids, Hitler's fearsome armored spearheads simply ran out of gasoline. Crews were forced to abandon their massive tanks right in the middle of the snow. The American defenders at Bastogne absorbed the harshest blows of the attack, buying the exact hours needed for clearing skies and broken supply lines to mathematically dismantle the German advance. By late January 1945, the Allied lines were fully restored, but the cost was staggering. It remains one of the bloodiest campaigns ever fought by the United States Army, resulting in approximately 89,000 American casualties. For Germany, however, the losses were fatal. Up to 100,000 German soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. Hitler had gambled his final strategic reserves on the Ardennes, permanently erasing his remaining elite armored units in the process. Following the failure of the offensive, the German military lost all capacity to attack. They were forced into a desperate retreat as Allied forces crossed the Rhine River, guaranteeing the unconditional surrender of the Third Reich just a few months later. The Battle of the Bulge stands as a definitive testament to human endurance. It proved that a determined resistance, summarized by a single defiant word from a freezing command post, could absorb, stall, and ultimately shatter one of history's most terrifying war machines.